But let's start with England, shall we? And the latest on the FA's search for Gareth Southgate's long-term successor. Lee Carsley remains in interim charge for 2 more Nations League matches. But what impact will that defeat to Greece last week have? Senior reporter Rob Dorsett joins us now. Oh, Rob, very good afternoon to you. Right, let's start with the simple one then. Where are we at in terms of knowing who the next England manager will be, who will be making the decision, and why haven't they spoken to anyone yet?
All really good questions, Rob. I mean, look, in terms of who's making the decision, ultimately it's the chief executive, Mark Bullingham, who will decide who he wants the next England men's manager to be. But it will be alongside the work of the technical director, John McDermott. And it's McDermott who's assessing all of the candidates. He's the football man. He's the football expert. Worked at Spurs' academy for more than a decade and is a big football man. You can see him there when he was alongside Gareth Southgate, when he was England's senior men's manager. And it's McDermott who's putting a shortlist in place, assessing candidates, etc., and then he will make a recommendation to Bullingham, and they will put a recommendation to the FA board about who they want to be the next England manager ultimately. But the truth is, 90 days after Gareth Southgate resigned, it feels we're no closer to that happening. In fact, it probably feels we're further away from that inevitability because of all that's been going on and the ambiguity in which Lee Carsley, the current interim manager, has been talking. It's all a bit of a mess in truth. And I don't understand why they haven't spoken to other people. I mean, we broke that story about 10 days or so ago now that they hadn't spoken to 4 people that I understood were high on their shortlist in Graham Potter, Eddie Howe, Thomas Tuchel and Jurgen Klopp. 3 of those 4 are out of work, and yet there'd been no approach from the FA to speak to any of them. That was mystifying to me, even if they're not first on their list. Why wouldn't you speak to those elite level managers to sound them out, get their thoughts and see whether they're available and at what sort of price potentially? So I don't understand why that hasn't happened. And the FA, to their credit, in fairness to them, have always said it will be a confidential process, and they've stuck to that absolutely religiously. They're saying nothing on the matter.
Yeah, interestingly, Roy Keane said England should go for Pep Guardiola. Is that feasible? And what's stopping England approaching him?
Well, we don't know that they haven't approached Pep Guardiola and his people, of course, because, as I say, it's a confidential process and the FA is saying nothing. My understanding is that Pep Guardiola is very much a dream candidate as far as the FA are concerned. But is it just that? Is it just a pipe dream? Unless they've had conversations with his representatives, they're no clearer, as we're no clearer, in knowing whether that's a possibility about the man on your screen potentially being the next England manager. And of course, we know his contract at Manchester City isn't up until the summer. What happens to Pep Guardiola after that is an absolute mystery. Now, this could be a masterstroke by the FA. We're talking about all these big names that they're not talking to. Maybe behind the scenes, they're talking to that man, Pep Guardiola. He's the one they want, potentially. Maybe that's happening. But it's no clearer about whether he wants to take the job. And that was made very, very clear in a timely interview that Pep Guardiola did on Italian TV yesterday. We can show you exactly what he said, because I think it's quite revealing. Look, leaving City, it's not true. I haven't decided yet. And it is not even true that I will be the next England coach. If I decided, I would say it. I don't know either. Anything can happen. Now, if he's true to his word there, Pep Guardiola, then it sounds like the FA are no clearer about whether he might be interested in the role or not. And again, that just makes all of the situation with what the FA are doing and their next process a little bit more mystifying. Remember, over the weekend, the Telegraph broke a big exclusive to say that Lee Carsley doesn't even want the England job. But he contradicted that story directly yesterday by saying that he's still definitely in the running and he's still definitely not prepared to rule himself out of it. And so everybody on this is a little bit confused. Everybody is, I think, trying to find out what the FA are thinking and what they want to do. But at the moment, it's all a bit of a mystery.
Let's just remind ourselves, Lee Carsley and these sort of mixed messages about whether he wants the job full-time. Have a listen to this, Rob. Here's some of what he's said over the past few weeks.
I think it's been quite clear that I'm doing the three camps. I'm really happy with that. The best person should get the job. It's an unbelievable job with a great group of players and potential. I was quite surprised on the after the last camp in terms of like the job's mine and like it's mine to lose and all the rest of it. No, my remit has been clear from the start. I'm doing 3 camps. There's 3 games left, and then hopefully I'll be going back to the 21s. Hopefully is a word and a phrase that I use quite a bit. It's there's obviously no guarantees in life, including tomorrow. So it's a job that I'm really proud of. The under 21s, a job that I'm massively invested in. The point I was trying to make is that it's one of the top jobs in the world. Obviously I'm not part of the process, but it deserves a top coach. In the past, when I've done this caretaker stroke interim role, I've gone so far down the I don't want the job that I've not done the job. I've actually not done the job. I'm not someone that's constantly saying to John, can I have an update, because the job's difficult enough as it is.
It certainly is. He seems a thoroughly decent man, Rob, but has he blown his chances of getting the top job?
Well, look, he's done himself no favours, in truth. This flip-flopping, this mishmash of messaging from Lee Carsley has not done him any favours at all, I'm sure. But you're right, he is a lovely bloke and he's an excellent coach and the players like him. And that's why that little montage you played there is a real shame, because he started the job so well, both on and off the pitch in the first international break last month. They won both games 2-0, didn't concede a goal, and he dealt with a very difficult situation where the media really went for him in places about the fact that he wasn't prepared to sing the English national anthem, and he dealt with that in a very humble and pragmatic way, I thought. But since then, he isn't answering this question directly about whether he wants the job. He's changing his mind about what the criteria is for the person who gets that job. And in truth, it's a bit of a mess. And you have to remember that the impression I got was that the FA wanted to give the job to Lee Carsley. But they needed to test out whether he could cope with the magnitude of it and all that goes with being the England men's football manager, which is a huge job, hugely high profile. Could he cope with that profile? Could he be the ambassador that the FA wanted? Could he be the brilliant orator, anything like the one that Gareth Southgate was before? Could he cope with the difficult questions from the media? And I think that's where, in the last international break, he showed himself sadly lacking in truth. And it's a shame, because he is an excellent coach. He does have brave ideas, but it's backfired on the pitch for him as well. That defeat to Greece 2-1, where it could have been many more than 2-1, you have to say, very open, where he played so many England attacking players in his starting 11 that there were huge gaps across the midfield and in defence, and England looked very, very porous. They have done in a number of games already under Lee Carsley, and I think that will be a concern for the FA bosses as well. Gareth Southgate always said, look, we've got incredible talent in this England squad that's at my disposal, but I am not playing fantasy football. I can't get them all on the pitch. You think that Lee Carsley has learned that the hard way in this international break. But above and beyond what's happened on the pitch, it's what's happened off the pitch. And that lack of clarity in his media messaging, I think, will certainly have damaged him in the eyes of the FA bosses.
Rob, let's be fair here. You've been around many England camps. There's people whose job is literally to prepare the England boss, whoever that may be, for tricky questions that could come up. So, do I derive from that he's ignored them, or that he hasn't been properly prepared for this, and therefore perhaps he's not to blame for the way he's answering these questions?
I think it's a very personal response from Lee Carsley, in truth. Look, I know that the media managers around the England team, and they're excellent. And they've worked very, very closely with Gareth Southgate and his brilliant messaging in the past. And I know that they've given Lee Carsley really detailed advice here. But when it comes to whether he wants the job or not and how he copes with those questions, that's a very personal response. That's not something that the FA media managers can control, in truth. And I think Lee Carsley's tied himself up in knots with it, in truth, because he's been a caretaker before at 3 clubs, at Brentford, at Birmingham City as well. And he's made it clear there that he's learned from those experiences, and he doesn't want to say he doesn't want the job, and he doesn't want to say he wants the job, because he thinks that changes the way that he's viewed. But it has led to some very mixed messaging, I think you have to say, from the interim manager. And it's left journalists like me and England football fans scratching their heads about what Carsley wants, and where the FA go from here. Rob, in terms of timescales, this is what the FA would say if they weren't holding a confidential process and telling us absolutely nothing. They'd say, look, we're in no rush here. As I say, 90 days since Gareth Southgate resigned. The World Cup qualifying draw isn't until December. The World Cup qualifiers themselves begin in late March. So they're more than 5 months away. And the World Cup itself starts in 605 days from now. So there is no rush after a lengthy period where Gareth Southgate took charge of 4 major tournaments. There is no rush for the FA to get somebody in post quickly. They can take their time, but without any messaging from the FA, with that confidential process, with Lee Carsley's mixed messaging to the media, you've got a very unsatisfactory situation here where football fans generally, England football fans, the England players crucially, don't know where the first team, where the men's senior team goes from here. Are those players trying to impress the next manager, or are they just working for an interim guy who's going to be gone in the short term? None of it is satisfactory. And I think that's why it's a difficult situation for the FA. And it does feel from the outside there's a bit of a shambles.
OK, a difficult situation, wonderfully explained. Rob, thank you very much indeed.